Welcome to Season 6 of the RAG podcast. Now, for those of you who don't know, the RAG stands for Recruitment Agency Growth, and this show has been around since early 2019. And every week, we are obsessed with finding out how the world's most successful and innovative recruitment agencies and their founders have got to where they are today. In Season 6, alongside the founder's story and the inside information of that business, I also want to focus on the reality of today's economy. There is so much noise about this inevitable recession that we find ourselves in right now. And where it's going to go, is it really having an impact on the recruitment sector? Are they seeing any change in job flow? Are they seeing any change in candidate control or activity? What is going on? I want to find out. So every single week, I want to forget the propaganda, forget the noise. I'm going to speak to a real life recruitment owner and find out what is going on in their business. I will bring it to you every single Wednesday from 12 o'clock across multiple platforms. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the RAG podcast. On this week's show, I was joined by Stuart Mitchell. Stuart is the founder of a company called Hampton North, a specialist cybersecurity search firm headquartered in the US. He's based in Connecticut, just in between Boston and New York. He's got 3 people and he launched the business in September 2022. So we're only 9 months into his journey. Now, Stuart, I wanted to interview him because the way he's done what he's done is incredible. I haven't never worked with Stuart, so I can't take any credit, but the way he works is exactly how I believe the modern recruiter should. It's what I teach thousands of people to do all over the world. He started investing in his personal brand in 2017 when he worked for a different firm. And then by 2019, he was at Stott May on the West Coast of America. And he started to get inbound business to the point where they called it Stuart's Magic Inbox. He was bringing in business all over the world for his teammates. And he started to realize the power of personal branding and inbound on LinkedIn. He then teamed up with the RecruitHub. And in the first 9 months has built over 7 figures. And all of it has been generated through his personal brand. He's now at 3 people and he wants to build a company that is fit for the modern era, a remote first business. All of the people who work for him has approached him and they're already top billers elsewhere. So he's building the Avengers of cybersecurity recruitment, experienced people who've watched him, have learned from him, who trust him and want to work for him. And as a result, they're all now reaping the rewards of this brand. So anyone who's looking to start an agency, this guy's 9 months in, you're going to learn a lot. Anyone who's already running a business, you could learn a hell of a lot from the way he's running it. Without further ado, Stuart, welcome to the RAG podcast.
Sean, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Pleasure. Stuart, for people who don't know, where are you based right now, Stuart? Where am I calling you from?
Yes. So I'm in the United States. I am in a very quiet part of the US in Connecticut, fairly equidistant between Boston and New York City, about 2 hours from each.
Wow, and it's New York State, isn't it? Connecticut?
No, it's its own state. It's its own kind of. It's the second smallest state in the US. It's pretty irrelevant, but yeah, it's its own state between kind of Mass and New York. A lot of people call it the highway between the two, to be honest.
Right. Okay. Fair. Well, look, mate, we can tell you're not an American by the accent. So I want to find out all the story of you getting over there. Before we get into it, but for the listeners' benefit who don't know you, just give us the bird's eye view of who you are today and what you do.
Yeah. So I run a small search firm. I started my own business in September of 2022. We're now 3 people. We focus exclusively in the cybersecurity ecosystem within the United States.
Yeah. So there's 3. Is it 3 of you?
3 of us now. Yeah.
Yeah. And to bring you on early on in such 9 months into your journey, people don't expect that from the RAG. But there's a reason I brought you on. And I'm going to tell you, it's because of your personal brand. I'll be honest. When I went out to LA in September, as you were starting, I met the guys at Stott May where you'd just left. And when I told them about what I did, they were like, do you know Stuart Mitchell? I was like, no. And they were like, he's the guy to watch from a recruitment perspective who's doing it well. So then I've been following you since. And then obviously you started up with the guys at RecruitHub who sponsor the show, which is amazing. Yep. So 9 months in, how are you feeling?
Yeah, pretty good. I think those that know me will always say that I'm always good, never great. I always kind of want a little bit more and always push for more. But in terms of, look, the success that we've had in what's felt like a really short, long 9 months, like I've definitely aged a bit and it's definitely been full on, but feeling really good about how the business is going. There's very late rumors of a fourth joining us pretty quickly, and somebody who's fairly high profile in the security recruitment ecosystem. So really excited about that. But look, in terms of the success that we've had in what is not the easiest market. I mean, it's not 2021 anymore where everybody's throwing checks around. I'm really happy with the progress that we've made so far.
Wicked. What I'd like to do is find out a bit more about you before Hampton North, and then we'll get into more of the business, right? So,
yeah.
But when did you how did you get into recruitment in general? Like, what's the story there?
Classic, right? Fell into recruitment. So, I was on my way to a cricket match in the UK. Like I didn't go to uni. I really kind of honestly wasted a lot of intelligence and talent through my teenage years and found myself a little bit lost, kind of working. I think I got fired like 9 times before I turned 21, and a load of like office jobs, temp jobs, whatever. I just couldn't find a home. And this guy who must have been 24, 25, he still works in recruitment actually, shows up in a brand new BMW. And I'm like, Phil, what do you do? Because this is a pretty sweet car. And he's like, I work in recruitment. And I was like, can you hire me? He's like, my friends are actually hiring entry-level folks and this is back when I'm in Northampton, hence Hampton North, and I owe to my hometown. But this was when I was back in Northampton, and he introduced me to this really local, very low value business. Kind of ground it out there, and this is, I guess, back in 2011. So a while back, aging myself a bit, but did a little bit there and realized that the real money was in London and actually international recruitment. So was the first of my friends to move down to London. I worked in SAP recruitment, which again is probably aging myself a little bit, but did SAP recruitment in London back in 2012, which is where things kind of really start. That's when I really started to think about making recruitment a career.
Right. And how do you remember the early days? How did you take to it?
With a lot of energy and enthusiasm, but I think if you ask the folks who I worked with back in 2012, 2013, 2014, like, would they have expected me to have the success that I've had now? I don't think that they would have. I was decent. I was okay. Yeah. I was never top biller in the UK. I came in a bit cocky and probably didn't back it up as well as maybe I could have. But I was good enough and I could talk the talk. And honestly, I was probably at the time like a stereotypical wannabe top biller in London that wasn't quite as good as I thought I was, really trying to figure out who I was as a person as well. But I was okay. But again, like, I don't think I could have predicted where I would be today. That's for sure. That's
so whereabouts in London were you based back then?
So initially, I worked on Great Portland Street, which is right by Regent's Park. Lovely area of town. Definitely not the kind of classic Essex band in the city. Yeah. So we didn't kind of run into too many of the other agency types, but I was there. And then about 18 months in, I essentially followed a founder who had started a new group. So I did 18 months of Portland resourcing. I did okay. They probably made a bit of money out of me, but they definitely didn't get rich off of me. I followed a founder. I followed Ezra Chapman, had invested in a new company, former founder of Chapman Black, founded Red Commerce. And he's somebody I met early in my journey and saw some potential in me. And he'd started this company he'd invested in this company in Newcastle, actually, Elliott Brown, who are a big competitor of the Frank Group, doing some really good stuff up in Newcastle. And so they tried to talk me into moving to Newcastle, which was a no from me. But I spent a few months up there as I joined Elliott Brown. And essentially, I was kind of telecommuting from Shoreditch way back when. So got to spend some time in the true recruitment hub of London, kind of that East vibe, etc. But very quickly, I think within 6 months, they realized that there was an opportunity for UK people to go to New York City. They had a few people there. They were doing okay. And at the time I was pursuing a love interest who was also from the US. So there was kind of hey, I think this might work out for you. And again, I was doing okay at the time for Elliott Brown, but then, back in pretty much 9 years ago to this date, not far off, they were like, and this was kind of before everyone else was doing the US thing. There's only a few folks that I know that have kind of been around over here longer, but they kind of chucked me on a plane and were like, go figure New York City out, which was an amazing opportunity for kind of 2.5 years in the game. And they kind of trusted me to do that, which was awesome.
What was that like moving to New York when you're from Northampton?
Yeah, eye-opening. I loved it. It was the best. I think New York City was just amazing for me in my 20s. I still romanticize about the first time I, came over the bridge from JFK and, walked onto, because the office was on Wall Street. And I was like, this is nuts. Like, what the heck am I doing here? But it was like, I get goosebumps when I talk about it, because it was just the most amazing experience. Yeah. And, it was hard. The first year was a real grind. I was essentially making money to break even, because New York City is not a cheap,
where were you living?
Cheap place to live. So I lived in New Jersey. I lived in kind of Hoboken, Jersey City. So I definitely wasn't living on Central Park or in the Village or whatever. We got there once things started to work out. But first year, pretty cool. Yeah, it was pretty cool. And I think, I know some recruiters that live there. But yeah, it was awesome. And, my commute would have me walk through the World Trade Center path every day. And so, again, just entirely. And somebody gave me a piece of advice once, when you're having a bad day, just look up, because you look up in New York City and there's nothing like it. Like, everything is huge and fast paced. And it's just like, again, it blows my mind that I had the opportunity to do that. And, first year was a grind, really kind of, the type of square your pennies away, have cereal for lunch in the office type, like, make sure you make it. But then, that kind of 2014 was tough. But 2015 onwards, things really started to kind of take shape for me, kind of personally, professionally, everything kind of played out really well for me.
Were you in security recruitment at that time?
No. So I worked in essentially a Microsoft ecosystem market, which is still a fairly popular space, but working kind of Dynamics and SharePoint with my SAP background. So not super high value now that I'm looking kind of retroactively. I'd have loved to have been, one of the real early adopters of cybersecurity recruitment. I still kind of think I was at a good time when I entered it in 2017, but I did well. I was mostly doing contract stuff. I think in my best year, I fell just short of 700K, which way back when, those were massive numbers. Nowadays, I don't know how they compare, but 2015, 2016, kid making more money than I ever expected to do. It's pretty sweet. And I, again, had a ton of fun doing it. I would say it was a very UK centric culture, really young kind of, grad model, grad shop, create your own talent, create your own culture, which, to do that with the US folks who are less, and you probably hear this a lot, but like less familiar with how English recruitment works and actually the kind of money that you can make if you're pretty good at it. It was awesome. Like, we have some memories that I can talk about, some memories that I can't talk about, but just had a blast the entire time. And it was just such an amount of fun for somebody who, again, from Northampton, telling stories to my friends, and even now, like, they thought, at the time when, like, I had two heads when I was explaining stories to them, like some of the things that we'd get up to on the weeks and weekends, it was amazing.
I think the timing of what you've said and the journey sounds very similar to me. So I was like Melbourne, Australia, 2012. Yeah. 1 minute I'm working as a barista in a coffee shop, and I've got a backpack and I'm living in a hostel. The next I'm working in recruitment, and I was all right for 18 months. And then I wanted to come home, move to London. And that's when, so 2012 was when I landed in London. And then I started Hoxo in 17. So there was a journey there, similar sort of time in London. And again, I was like, earning 200 grand at like 27, 28 years old in London. And it's like, I tell them stories and my friends are like, is that part, you what? You did what?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. And how did you do that again? And when you tell them, it sounds so simple. But that's the reality of our industry. Not everyone does that well, but those that do, it's mental. So when did you know you were going to be a founder of a business? When did that start to come on your radar?
I think some other people knew before I did. If I'm being entirely honest, I think people knew it before I did, because I was never somebody who grew up entrepreneurial, or grew up as like, hey, I want to be the owner, I want to be the founder, whatever. And I remember Steve Stott, my former CEO, said it before I did. He's like, there's no way you're here forever, and if you don't set up your own thing, you've let yourself down. And at the time, it was kind of, that's what you're supposed to say. And now I look back, and I'm really grateful that he saw that in me, and some others did. And actually, people outside of recruitment in the cybersecurity industry actually thought Stott May was my company, and I started to think like, okay, like. I know it's not, and I played a role in helping it grow, but it definitely wasn't me. But maybe I should, right? And so I started to think about it.
What do you think you were doing? What were you doing that made people think it could be your company?
I think, look, I genuinely don't know, but I think it's a lot of how I presented. I treated that brand like it was my own, and it was something that I was super protective of. I was really proud of what we did during my time there, and continue to see. So I think potentially the way I treated the brand, and I would like to think that the team internally felt I treated them the same way, but the way I brought value to other opportunities, created opportunities for other people that might not have been in my ecosystem, I think that's why. And again, also like, and I know this is something that you do every day, but like, I was singing from the mountains on LinkedIn and at conferences that this was the partner, and so I think people just affiliated the two. Like, okay, I see Stuart all day, every day on social media, and he works for Stott May, and so like the two intertwined really quickly, and I think it was just the things kind of fell together.
Where did the whole building your brand, going to LinkedIn, where did all that start for you, and why?
I don't know. It was something that I started to do a lot. So I did a little bit of Elliot Brown. The real answer is I hate cold calling, and I was always looking to find a more effective, more efficient way to connect with people. Once I'm connected with people, I'm very, very good if I'm in meeting them, if I'm on an arranged call. The last time I wanted deal from a cold call was in 2015. So I had to find other ways to connect with people. And it would either be directly on LinkedIn, which was kind of how I got a lot of it started, was direct messaging marketing on LinkedIn, using LinkedIn as, sales messaging, etc. before that was really a thing. And then I started to, and I will say there's a recruiter I have a ton of respect for in the cybersecurity space, and he would always be posting his roles and opportunities. A guy called Lee Hills, he's tremendous in the cybersecurity space. And I always saw that he would do this, and I was like, okay, this is a good place to start, because you start to showcase what you're doing to everybody else. And I was like, hey, like, other recruiters get jealous, other clients get intrigued, and I was like, this is a really good place to start. And then I was like, okay, I spend a bit more time on LinkedIn now, and I start to see people with personality like get kind of a cult following, right? Like, there's people who genuinely are like, I'm interested to see what they have to say on a daily basis. And whilst nothing I say, at least I think, is like groundbreaking or world changing, like, I think starting a lot of it is having somewhere to start. And I started to kind of, some of these like brain farts or whatever you want to call it, I started to vocalize them on LinkedIn, because I was like, this is quite interesting, this is quite funny. And I started to kind of put it out there. And again, the traction it gets makes your life, I don't have to tell this to you, but like, the traction it gets makes your life so much easier. And I live for shortcuts. So for me, it just made sense to kind of continue that momentum. But look, it took time, right? Like, this wasn't an overnight thing. It's like going to the gym. It's repetition. And I don't do that, but I do the LinkedIn stuff. And yeah, all of a sudden, I think kind of 2019 was when it really started to kind of spiral for me and make my job super, super easy.
Are you spending hours on LinkedIn and cold outreach and want more business coming to you over your competition? Well, if you're the founder or leader of a recruitment agency, here's what we can do for you. Hoxo will give you the training, support, and resources to take you from what I call an offline recruiter, reliant on posting jobs and sending in mails to open up new customers, ultimately looking like every other recruiter on LinkedIn, to being an online recruiter, being seen by over 25,000 relevant people, driving a 200% minimum increase in engagement on your profile, and seeing daily lead lists from LinkedIn that you can follow up with in 6 weeks' time. And if you don't perform, you don't pay. Now, why can we make such a bold, results-driven promise like this? Well, it's simple. There's 2 reasons. Firstly, whilst I've been building the RAG podcast, we've actually done what we say we'll do for our clients. In less than 2 years, we actually built a business generating from 0 to over 1 million views per month on LinkedIn, leading to multi-million-pound revenues with a sales team of me plus 2 people, without making a single outbound cold call. Second is our track record. Not only have we done it ourselves, but we've helped over 350 agencies and over 4,000 consultants do it as well. It all in the last 3 years. Now, if that sounds of interest to you, click the link associated to this episode and we can book a call and tell you how we can help. Right, let's get back to the show.
So 2019, you're working at Stott May. You've been investing in your brand for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Look, we spoke about this offline. So like literally the last week I started posting about cold calling. I did 2 posts in 2 days that got well over 65,000 engagements. And kind of said what you just said, right? So I don't believe cold calling's dead. I don't. I think it's genuinely harder to get someone on the phone than it was 5 years ago and 10 years ago, because people have the ability now to look at their mobile, not spot a number and just click no. Yeah. Whereas years ago, your phone rang, a handset rang, and you didn't know who it was. You just fucking answered it. So all that's changed. Plus, the platform that LinkedIn is didn't exist when people learned to cold call. So, of course, not only has cold call got a bit harder, there's also a lot of things that you can do. So there's this brigade in our industry that think it's the only way to work. And when you've got new people coming in who are sub 25, who've never even knocked on a mate's house or phoned a landline to see if their friends are home, like we used to do growing up, like they don't know they don't get the whole, what you're going to phone someone out of the blue that doesn't know you and try and open a conversation. I mean, when you've got a job to call someone about, I think it just naturally feels easier. But when you phone in a random client and you don't have any context if they're going to want you, I just think it's a very, very inefficient way of working, that you only do it if you have to. So if you're literally screwed, you're brand new to the industry, you don't know anyone, and you're probably gonna have to do it. But when you've been doing it as long as you have, there's got to be better ways. And so many people resist change, they hate it, and then so many people are like desperate for something new, they fucking can't stand it. So when you just said then, like, it took till 2019 to start seeing the returns, what does the return look like? Because this is one of the biggest battles I have, is explaining to people what good looks like from a outcome, because they don't get it. They think they're going to post on LinkedIn and the phone's going to start calling. It's like, not quite. But tell us how it worked for you. So
I think the easiest thing to say is that's when I started to become known as a $1 million plus biller. That was the year that trickled for me and has happened again. And, I've been able to do that, run a 7-figure EBIT team as well as bill $1 million myself, which is something I'm really proud of. But I think the running joke at Stott May was Stuart's magic inbox, right? Like, it became a running joke of how many people reached out to me to work with us as a recruitment partner. And that's, when people start to do that, you start to dictate the businesses you do and don't do business with. You start to dictate how they structure the compensation structure, how they pay you, how you work with them, and the shoe gets on the other foot. Like, hey, like, sorry, we're too busy. Hey, we'll pay you more. Or, hey, that's not in our sweet spot. We're going to need an extra X amount or whatever. And you start to be able to dictate the terms. And, even when I do reach out to people, like one of the best clients I ever worked with, I was stuck on the tee. I was stuck on a golf tee, and there's a slow group in front of me. It was like a Thursday night, and I pinged this guy. And I was like, literally, hey, man, I know you've been looking for a little bit. I know you guys are quite hard to hire for. I just beat you guys in an offer with these. Are you interested? Hey, Stu, yeah, I know you were working with these folks. I know you've also worked with these folks. Let's do it, right? Yeah. Sorry, I think when I said, hey, Stu, Siri started listening. Give me one sec.
That's brilliant. Yeah, it happened on my end as well. Like, my phone just went ding. Hey, Siri.
There we go. Classic. Exactly. But yeah, so it became a lot easier for bigger businesses. And then when you start with these great names, it just starts to ripple. So a lot of my business was inbound. If I did outbound, my like response rate and outbound to me was, hey, you know who I am? Do you need me? Not Stuart Mitchell is a veteran of the industry who was born in like none of that jazz, right? Like it was, hey, should we do this? Like, and that just becomes, that's a lot more natural to me. It's a lot more like, I understand my value. You see the value, you know, if you can and can't use me versus, you know, pushing something down somebody's throat when you might not even be the right partner for them. And so it made life a lot easier for me. And, you know, a lot of that has continued into starting my own brand because so many people knew who I was and knew to follow, etc. It made life a whole lot easier. But that's when things, you know, the inbound business, even the inbound candidates of, hey, you know, my cousin, you know, I play somebody's cousin because they saw my post and they're like, my cousin's interested in that. They're not on LinkedIn. Do you mind if I tag, you know, do you mind if I intro you? So It just became a lot easier. I'm not saying that recruitment ever became easy because it's never easy. It became easier. And that's, you know, that's what we're all looking for is how do we make this job easier for ourselves?
Yeah, man, it's better. It's easier, but it's a better job. That's the bit. Like, think about it. If you could spend all day, and I say this a lot, you could spend all day talking to people who know who you are. It's a fundamentally better job than ringing people that don't.
Yeah.
Like, fucking trying to convince people all the time. Like one of my clients who reminds me of you a lot, a guy called Ryan Kelly in Melbourne, in Australia, Creative Natives. And Ryan's built an incredible business. A few years ahead of you. There's like 16 of them now. But Ryan, when I started working with him in the first 8 weeks, him and his team, there's 3 of them on the program with me. They got 1.8 million views on LinkedIn in 8 weeks. And their content just started, I mean, they blew me out the water, right? Their content was flying. They were getting like 1,000 likes and 800 likes. And he's like, this is all vanity at the beginning. Like, it's good. And it's a lot of notifications. If anything, my notifications are distracting me a bit. But now he's like, honestly, I met him for lunch in Manchester when he was over the other week. And he said, we never have to convince anyone to want to work with us. Like, they either do or they don't. Yeah, but it's never this is why you should choose us. It's kind of, they've already come to that conclusion. It's whether the commercials work at the time, whether the timing is like, but that whole, I've got to try and convince you I'm the partner's just gone. It's like happening in the background. And I was like, wow, like that's a really good way to put it, because I've never looked at it that way. But you know, I think it's so simple when you think of it that way.
Yeah, and it's weird when I get, very occasionally, if I'm dealing with a hiring manager, they'll throw me into like a talent team or something, and they're like, "So tell me about yourself." I'm like, "Yeah, I don't normally have to do this. So like, this is a muscle I don't stretch very often. Like, I'm good at recruitment. Everybody uses me. Like, I don't know what to say." So it is, normally people have made their decision, and again, like, you don't go into like a car dealership and then say, "Hey, convince me." Like, if you find the car you want, it's not like, "Hey, convince me." It's like, you came here, right? Like, and I get that that's part of it, but like, there's times where I've become like, people have reached out to me and then they're like, you know, tell me why we should be working with you. And I was like, you called me. Like, I don't need, like, I would definitely like this, but I haven't been hounding you. And I think sometimes that's, particularly with some of these legacy businesses, like, there is that switch, and, you know, you end up in negotiations and they're like, "Hey, I need you to compromise here." I was like, but you called me. And it's so interesting when, you know, some of these businesses that are used to being hounded decide to choose their partner versus being reactive.
I get that.
And you can see as you go through the buying process, it's so interesting. Like, you literally called me to ask, and now, like, you want me to negotiate on price? Like, it's odd. It's funny to watch. It does crack me up.
I get people come to me like, "Sean, need your services. Can we chat? I love your content, blah, blah, blah." And then, like, "Oh, we need to do a deal here." I'm like, well, why? Like, it's the exact same thing. Like, you've come to me, you know, no.
Yeah.
But, you know, I've already got a guarantee in place that I'll give you your money back.
Yeah.
Like, I don't mind. It's like, you know, it's like you do. I'll give you a rebate. Like, if people work with me for 6 weeks and they get no results and they do everything I tell them, then I'll give them every penny back. Then it means I've failed, but it never happens because it never failed. Because it's a process that just, it works. I always put it this way, is like, if anyone's listening here and they're like, maybe it's just because he's in cyber, bullshit. Like, if you're spending a lot of time on LinkedIn each day and you're using it as a primary tool to find candidates. You're on Recruiter a lot, and you can guarantee that your market are there, it'll work. It's not an if, it's a when, right? Now, if we go back to the Stott May piece, 2019, you just explain like what was happening. It takes you till 2022 to launch your business. So what was the catalyst that made you take the plunge, and actually go on your own?
Yeah, so I think there was a few factors, right? Like I think I had achieved all the things that I'd set out to achieve at Stott May in a very, very quick manner. Received every promotion I could get, had my name on the wall, had some records, hired some great people, they were ready to step up. And it did feel like a natural drawing of a conclusion for me. I loved every second of it. It was a great place to work. They're a great company with great people. But the higher I got, the more I wanted to do things differently. And I realized that it's not my company, so it's not my place to dictate particularly some of the kind of more, decisions around kind of commercials, etc. So for me, it felt like, hey, sure, if you want to do something differently, like just put your money where your mouth is and go and do it yourself. So it felt like the right time, at a time where we could kind of separate in a good manner, where my successor was already identified. And so the timing was good. But, I thought you were going to ask a question there, but I just had a vision of like, there's things that I wanted to do differently and wanted to do better. And I think like, not necessarily better either, by the way, like in my mind, better, but not necessarily better.
No.
But I had my way that I wanted to work. Yeah, please do.
But you carried on in a logical way. But how long was that process between decision, I am going to have to do this, and then actually going and telling them and handing you notice in? Was it something you could sit on for a while, or did you have to go and action it?
I think I really thought about it for a year. And then 6 months prior to the decision, I attested to it. There's a chance that this might happen. So I was like, hey, like, I think I've done everything I can do. Unless there's a change for me or a change or whatever, like it kind of feels like it's going to play out. So I think like when that didn't change, and I don't think it had to, but I kind of had the conversation of, hey, if we're going to do anything, we probably need to change it now. And we didn't. So then kind of, I think I probably knew that I was going to leave at like February, March, maybe even April of last year, when I was like, okay, I'm doing this. Still finished, I would say, like fairly strong and kind of sprinted to the end. And then, it was July 31st. I decided to kind of wrap things up after kind of first half of the year. And look, I had some paternity, and my baby was born in between as well. So
when did you become a dad? What was that?
Yeah, April of 2022. I will say, like, maybe starting a business and having a baby in the first year is not the play. But I will also say that my wife, for whatever success we have this year and beyond, my wife should be in the credits of whatever happens, because she has been very understanding of the role that I've had to play as a business founder, which has been a lot of work. Like, I had my first day off this year, like back at the start of June. Like, it's been tough for her, and so grateful to the role that she's played. I'm confident that she'll see the spoils of war once we're at where we need to get. I'm sure something very shiny or expensive will come her way. But it definitely wasn't easy, kind of balancing the two of being a new dad and being a new business owner. Like, I probably wouldn't suggest that folks follow that part of my journey.
It is interesting because I always find, like, I started Hoxo when I was just turned 30. I just bought a house. I didn't have any responsibilities. And I genuinely thought, like, in the next few years, I'm probably going to get married and have kids, and it's probably going to be harder. So I just thought, fuck it, let's do it now. And I'm grateful I did. I ended up going through a marriage, a divorce, another marriage, 2 stepkids, and now I've got a baby on the way myself in 3 months exactly. So, I'm grateful that I've got 6.5 years of business ownership before I have a child, and I'm frightened to death of of some of the things that are coming. So did that make you wobble at all? Like when baby born, were you questioning whether you should just stick it out at start of May for another year and just fucking get through that first graft?
No, I have I am so confident of my own ability to do this job. And I think that's half the reason I'm good, is that I generally think that whatever the market, whatever, like I can do this and I can provide for my family. And, you know, I had done financially fairly well out of the few years, and I didn't piss it all away like I did when I was younger. Like I had a safety net. And one thing I'd say is maybe I hired a little aggressively. Like I hired in my third month when, you know, I nicked a couple of deals in, and maybe I was a little aggressive there, but no, I never questioned it. And again, like looking back, there were a couple of grind months, like starting just as the holiday, like November and December is obviously Thanksgiving, Christmas. Maybe, you know, in an ideal world, maybe I started in January of this year and waited out, but there's no ideal world. There's never a good time to start a business. And I think, you know, mentally where I was at, I was ready to go. I was ready to start something new. And, you know, ideally, you know, if I'd have done this in start of 2021 when everyone was throwing money around, like that'd have been great. But, you know, really, really happy and have no regrets of doing it and pulling the Band-Aid off when I did.
So did you have a bit of paternity time up until September then? Of June, July, August? I had a bit of April, and with Stott May, I was grateful for that. They're very, you know, very respectful of me needing some time with Eloise, kind of, so was really good. And then I tried to take August out. I broke my hand the week before, which wasn't great. So the last week I broke my hand, so I couldn't like play some golf or whatever. And then somebody, when I said I was moving on, I was probably, you know, a little bit more kind of confusing about disappearing into a puff of smoke or whatever. And so somebody reached out to me, a private equity company, and they're like, "Hey, we heard from somebody. We know that you're on the market. Can we hire you as a recruiter?" And I was like, "No, like I'm not, like this is my plan is to start my own practice in a couple of months. I want to take some time." And they're like, "Oh, because we need to hire 15 security people this year." And I was like, "Okay, well, will you use my firm?" They were like, and this was a London-based private equity company, and actually my dad was in town, and so I was like, "Hey, I can come to London next week and we can talk about this." So they flew me to London, and so I wanted to take a bit more time out, so I ended up taking like 2.5, 3 weeks. And this company flew me to London. We did a little bit. It was a bit weird, and decided like they took care of my costs, and I did a little bit of consulting for them, but actually they pulled out of the deal. But at that point I was like, all right, I'm already back to work. Let's just go. So probably shouldn't have taken that call. And then maybe I'd have taken maybe in October or November as well. But yeah, I ended up only having like 2.5, 3 weeks out. So that probably wasn't my smartest play. I was the same though. I think looking back now, it would have been, I had the money to take a few months and do stuff, but I don't know. I think if you've got the bit between your teeth, you want to get on with it, right?
Yeah, I'm not good at not working. I realize that. Like, I think, and in the US, it's a real thing, right? Like, no one's never not working. Like, so it's pretty. Like, I enjoy recruitment. I enjoy the challenges. I like running a business. Like, I know it's people, whatever, besmirch this job at times, but like, I love what I do, and that's why I think it's something that I've been successful at, is something that I want to continue to keep doing. And so for me, logging on of an evening or getting on early and starting, like, it doesn't exhaust me. I don't really get burnt out because I actually feel invigorated when I'm doing it. And I think that's the difference, right? I think some people get burnt out because they're doing something they don't like doing. For me, I have such an integration of like personal life and professional life. Like, I golf with cybersecurity execs, I drink and have dinner with talent leads. Like, so for me, it's kind of never on, never off. But I like it. I don't know if I would change that.
That's a very modern way of thinking. And I'd say I'm very similar. I wake up every day very happy with what I'm doing. Like, I wake up with I've got a lot to get done. Like, my day today, I woke up at 6. I was in the gym at 7:30. I was back for 7:15. quick coffee for my wife as she's getting up. Jumped on a call at 7:30 because I knew I had a mental day with it. So I jumped on with the prospect at 7:30 till 8:30, dropped the kids at school, back by 9, straight on a call with the whole business. I've been nonstop all day, right? But I've enjoyed it. Like I feel energy. I don't feel disappointed. Again, if I'd have sat there all day calling numbers and getting rejected and being like hitting switchboards, like I remember having to work myself up in recruitment every morning at times when I was doing that. I was like, fucking hell, like, I've got to do that for another day. And again, once I got in front of people, I had meetings, I was brilliant and I loved it, but there was too much. I just remember that I hated that bit. So why did you join the RecruitHub? Why did you work with Edmund? Because I love these guys. They sponsor my show, and I'm not just saying, obviously there's a relationship, but I am genuinely interested to know why you took that decision.
Yeah, so I think what I realized is I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm not good at. Operationally, and I have a very strong understanding of how to be an exceptional recruiter, how to hire good recruiters, and how to build a revenue funnel. Like really good at bringing revenue. How to actually like make that be a real thing in the background. Like true understanding of financial models. I understand that if I do a lot and don't spend a lot, I'll make loads. But really understanding financial models. Building a website, putting together terms, putting together like EVPs, etc. This is where RecruitHub have really helped me. You throw in a couple of other bits of like some of the like taxation laws in the United States, and I have a built-in accountant. Some of the compliance laws, and I just didn't have this. And the way I look at it is, I use RecruitHub, and Edmund's great, and we have a great relationship. I've used him as, to some extent, an advisor for strategic hires that I may make, or directions that I might push the business in, and he's been great, kind of bringing his own ideas to that too. So I've been really, really grateful for the partnership, where it's just like, Stu, go and do what you're really good at, and we'll kind of take care of the rest within reason. And it's just allowed us to go further. And look, obviously there's a cost attached to that, and I understand that, but would I rather have a really great percentage of loads, or all of the percentage of the middle, and I spend my life doing agonizing admin work, which is just not what I enjoy or what I do well. So it made perfect sense to me, and since then, I'm grateful for the network that I have. I think there's different people at different stages with this, and again, I don't think like a lot of people in recruitment. I think I've always kind of, people have said like I'm the most anti-recruitment person ever, but I do realize that there is value to a community, particularly when I'm running into similar problems with hiring, or tool usage, or HR problems, or in terms of like getting clients on board, or anything like that. So I've been grateful for the community that they've built, and it's just made my life a lot easier. And I think specifically when I was a solopreneur, when I was on my own, it was good just to have someone to talk to, because it's those first few months when you are really on your own, like it's a lonely world. So I was grateful for that too.
Our trusted partner, RecruitHub, helps new founders launch their own recruitment businesses in the UK, US, and the UAE. The community is growing rapidly, with over 70 founders on the RecruitHub platform right now. Everything you need to launch your own recruitment business with ease. You receive 100% of the fees you bill. You own full commercial control of your business and increase its value. You get cutting-edge tech stack from ATS to sales automation. There's no admin. Handle everything from community registration to contracts to finance and support. There's no setup costs on the platform, no recurring fixed costs, and no surprise fees. If you're thinking of taking the next step in your career and want to discuss your business idea, please book a confidential chat with RecruitHub's team or learn more here. www.recruit-hub.com/UK-awareness. Okay, let's get back to the show.
Totally makes sense. I mean, the early days, I was always in a two-way. Well, it was three of us who set Hoxo up, so I was never on my own. But I imagine it's pretty lonely when you start your own business. And there are, look, they're all simple enough things you could do. But if you can get someone else who's an expert to take them from day one, what impact did it have then? So paint the picture of your earliest time in September, October. What were you actually doing all day? Once like the where you would normally be doing all the admin and setup. What were you doing?
Selling, like sold a retainer on my third day. So like straight in, like did not mess around, like making money essentially, and making money, shouting from the rooftops, building a brand. But yeah, recruitment, like essentially recruitment, getting money in the door, getting clients on board, particularly kind of picking up new labels and stuff like that. And yeah, obviously some finesse stuff around kind of long-term values and vision, etc. But 90% of my time was doing recruitment, which is like, that's my go-to, right? That's my crutch whenever things aren't great or whenever things are, struggling. Like I can always bill, I can always do recruitment. So it was, it felt very familiar. I didn't feel like I was out of my league when I decided to go on my own, because I did everything I used to do.
What impact does having a brand have on you, do you think, starting a business where, like, no one knows Hampton North, like you're a brand new name? What impact do you think having a personal brand built before had on that?
Everything, honestly, everything. Like I would not have a 3-person company right now. I would not have done the revenues. Like I have an industry that cheerleads for me, and I get that there's probably people in cybersecurity that don't like me or don't want to work with me or have their own recruiter, but I have enough cheerleaders in my industry and really want me to win. And when you're starting a business, like that is just the most humbling feeling when you have people like, hey, like rooting for you, going to introduce you to whoever, like let me know how I can help. And so having that brand and having that as almost like a support system when I was out on my own, of like, hey, like help this guy out. We want him to win. We'll share, we'll comment, we'll introduce people, whatever, like that. And I will always be grateful for that, and again, like some of the earlier customers of people that, I didn't know and hadn't met, but had been following my journey for a number of years. Like it was just the most amazing thing. So it honestly, I wouldn't have been anywhere closer. And maybe I could have filled it up with doing 500 specs a week or 100 cold calls a day. But again, I don't know if I'd be where I am today without that kind of network and reputation.
No. And this literally was the reason I launched Hoxo, right? Was when I was looking into launching Hoxo, which was the recruitment company. The big thing for me was non-compete. It wasn't even that I didn't really want to go out on BD and cold call all day, but I would have done it. I ended up doing it when I started Hoxo anyway. But the truth was, the non-compete was so tight in a market that I kind of felt like I knew everyone. I didn't, but I felt that way at the time.
Yeah.
You're billing 700 grand. You kind of think you know everyone. But there was nothing in my contract that said people couldn't see me or hear me. Like there was no.
Yeah.
I could talk to the many. I couldn't ring someone who I'd done a deal with.
Yeah.
Go, hey, I'm out. But they could still recognize the brand. And whether they come to me or whether we just open the door in 6 months' time, I just figured out that would be a really easy way for me to get in front of people. And I imagine that's happened similar for you. Yeah,
I think, look, I made a very big song and dance about kind of opening and sharing like who I was and where I was going. And so that my contact details were easy reach. But I also think, like, again, similar to you, right? Like you think you know everyone in your industry till you show up at like one of these events and you walk past 100 people and you know 2. Right. And I think that's the real eye opener. I think the other thing is, I spent a lot of time at Stott May working the California market. Now that I live in the Northeast, I hadn't had really, like I did nothing with my local market. And I was like, okay, like I'm going to go and bang on the doors of, I joined the local country club because I know that there's a load of executives there. And so that's been grateful. So I hadn't really tapped my local market. I spent a lot of time in New York and Boston now because it's drivable for me in a couple of hours. And so, I've found that really, really useful. And again, like those 6 months, those old relationships, like it goes around quicker than you think, right? And all of a sudden, the other thing to bear in mind is the industry that I was having my most success in is at Stott May is now in a really bad way, right? Like tech as an industry in terms of like SaaS companies, etc., are not doing well. So had I stayed or not, like that business had gone because a lot of these companies are doing layoffs. And so, I realized that cybersecurity is interesting because it exists in so many different industries. It's not just in these like big tech companies like Amazon or Netflix. Hospitals need cybersecurity people, oil and gas companies, obviously banks, every business, manufacturing. There is not a business that doesn't need cybersecurity people. And what we found is, right now my sales pitch is, hey, I've hired the most amazing people to these big tech companies. I have a reach to people that you probably haven't been able to ever hire, and they've probably never heard of who you are, but now they're a little bit more open-minded because they actually don't want to work for a tech company. They would rather work for a manufacturing or a military or a utilities, whatever it is. And that's kind of what I'm pitching to people is, the caliber of people I've pitched, and maybe actually 2 years ago you'd have never been able to get them because they'd have gone to any big SaaS company and been paid a fortune. Now the market's corrected a little bit. People say corrected, people say it's gone down. It kind of just is what it was before COVID. But most recruiters haven't been around long enough in this space to understand that, and they're really struggling. Like, I understand what this is, and it's just a cycle. But that's kind of my value add right now is, look, you may be able to get people that you haven't been able to ever hire. So it's interesting, but having that built-in network and also realizing that it is just a huge old landscape out there. US is huge, cyber is huge, allowed me to kind of figure a few things out for the first 6 months and then really thrive when I needed to.
Love it. And you mentioned hiring 3 people. You got, is it you plus 3 or you including?
It's me plus 2 with another offer going out this week. So
what were the symptoms or what was going on in the business that made you decide to start hiring so soon?
Deals, and also just wanting to be around fantastic people. I look around the room and everybody in the business is $1 million biller types, like knows what performance looks like, knows, either via me or via the network, the kind of standards that I'm going to expect here. So I don't have to kind of ram those down people's throat, right? They know who I am, they know what I do. And actually, like, pretty much everybody that I've hired has, targeted outreach to me about an opportunity here and what that might look like. So really grateful that that's happened. But it's all organic growth, right? The invoices are coming in. We're seeing immediate return of investment of, as an example, Ruby, who came over in March, she did 84K in her 3rd week. So all of a sudden, bang, like immediate ROI. So grateful for that. And that just allows us to kind of continue on the path of growth. But, even in a tighter market, we have a lot going on. We have a lot of opportunity. We have a lot of ground to cover. And, I don't know that I'm in this to have these, huge private equity exits or anything like that. But I also know that the types of business that I want to service, the ground I want to cover, it can't be done in a one-person business, whilst that would probably be a little bit less stressful at times. Where I want to be and where I want to take this, it's just not conducive to be me on my own. And so, I think we're going to build something. We're going to build something it's really hard to get in. We have a really high barrier of entry. Like, I think because we're going to be at least today, I'm not saying anything is ever closed, but we're a remote first environment. We're a small team with low overheads and very high expectations, but lots of autonomy. That's great when things are good, but the high autonomy thing doesn't work if people aren't doing the business. So we just really need to kind of keep those high standards and kind of the numbers of what we're doing. So excited with who we have. I'm not going to grow for vanity or metrics sake, but if there is an opportunity to hire somebody fantastic, which I think we have a couple of others right now as well, I'm going to take advantage of it because I'd love to be. Look, everyone wants to be the best in their space, but I do think there is still a void in the US for the best cyber recruitment company. There's loads of decent individuals, but there's no brand that owns this space.
So is that what you want to build a brand that the best individuals come to, and they say,
yeah, pretty much.
You're building like the Avengers of the cyber world. Like,
I would absolutely love to do that. Yeah.
So the people you've hired are good, already decent, like good billers, very good billers. They're well known. They've got networks. Like, they're not. Yeah. I mean, that's the hardest thing in the fucking industry, right? To attract someone with good experience who's got a network. Like, so again, your brand has an impact not only on the client side and the candidate side, but it attracts talent too. Like people want to work for you because they see you, they trust you, they know you're good at what you do, they know you've got a brand, they know you've got a network. If they're turned on by what you're doing, then they're confident that the external market is. Therefore, jumping into the vehicle that you're creating means good news for them as well as you.
Yeah. And I'm happy to piggyback some people to the top as long as we all get there together. Like I got no issues with us kind of riding up the elevator together. But look, I think, who I am on, and I think this is one of the other differences as well, who I am on LinkedIn and socials is exactly who I am to work with and work for. Like I think one of the things that I'll always say is like, when I'm selling the opportunity here and what it looks like, I know exactly who I am, but I also know who I'm not. I'm not a massively positive person. Like I know what my blind spots are. My wife, sometimes she's like, your team are amazing. Like you should tell them that like a little bit more often. But I think like, I know some of the things, like I'm sometimes less structured, but I know that anyone that I've hired previously and whatever, like they've gone really far and they will continue to do that. And, at times like I'll have the tougher conversations and I'm confident in that, but I'm very transparent with who I am on LinkedIn, and that personality would shine through as someone to work for. And I think people appreciate authenticity, right? I think a lot of times in our industry, there's a lot of cloak and dagger. There's a lot of lots of things happening behind the screens of what the business is doing, comp structures, who's hiring, who's firing, etc. I think like the biggest thing is like I open my books. I'm really honest about who we are and what we're doing, and that's all people want. Like honestly, people appreciate honesty, whether it's good news, bad news. People just want to know what the news is, and that's kind of how I operate, and that's who I try and be on LinkedIn as well.
It all makes sense. And I think my whole mantra around LinkedIn is don't be anything but who you are. Just be who you are offline, online, right? I call it being an online recruiter. You can have a LinkedIn account. You can be connected to 1,000 or 5,000 people, but if you're just limited to the phone calls and the emails, you're missing a huge opportunity, because if you just stick to who you are online and offline, more people see the good of who you are than the bad. Like everyone automatically goes to well, what if people hate me? What if people think I'm shit? What if this? What if that? And they always think the worst case scenario first, which we probably do the same. Like, but when you actually measure up what could happen versus, all right, well, let's look at the positives that could happen as well. Let's just take a minute to flip the glass half full and say, well, what could happen if we get this right? It's incredible, right? It's incredible.
Yeah. And like, here's the thing. If someone doesn't like you, do you want to work with them anyway? Right? Like if someone doesn't like who your authentic self is, like, do you want to, every time you get a call, do you want to be stressed every time you have a Zoom call with this person because you have to put this face on of the facade of a human being you are? No, like you want to work with people that you like and see the world through your lens. And I'm sure there's plenty of people that don't like me. I'm sure there are, and I'm sure there's people that are that idiot Stu who's entirely wrong about remote work or compensation but if you have an opinion on something, there's always people that agree with you, as long as, like, again, there's a line to the things you bring up, religion, politics, like there's lines that you don't talk about. And I'm sure that's part of your course of like, this is the no-go zone, but you're allowed to have an opinion on remote work. You're allowed to have an opinion on, compensation. You're allowed to share market trends and use data and, share anecdotes. And that's great. And again, not everyone's going to like you. Like not everyone in your recruitment office probably likes you. Not everyone in your, everyone that you do business with likes you. But, the reality is it's so much more, life is so much easier when you can be yourself every day and not have to put a face on. Everyone's seen the movie Joker, right? Like you don't want to be putting that on every day to go to work. And again, it helps if you're a decent or interesting human being for sure. But, it's, again, like to your point, like everyone goes to the negative, but do you want to work with those folks?
No, absolutely not. What's life like for you now then? So the baby is what? How old is the baby?
Just over a year. Yeah. Right. So.
Oh yeah, April. I'm thinking it's October.
Yeah.
So yeah, just over a year. How are you juggling like? What is a day like in your life? And I'm asking this to imagine my own life.
Yeah. So I tend to get up with Eloise in the morning. That's when my wife will probably work out and she'll do her thing. We'll go I'll probably get my emails out the way. We'll go for a walk if the weather's nice. Grab a coffee. I'll log on formally 8-ish. I will probably a couple of times a week, but depending on my schedule, I'll work throughout the day. Lots of video calls, obviously coaching. I do a lot of new business. I do less on the delivery side nowadays. So a lot of it is kind of more outbound structured stuff via Zoom or, LinkedIn or whatever it may be. I'll get to the gym in the day. At about 4:00, I slow down. I'll have dinner with my wife and daughter. We'll do bath time with Eloise. So like maybe probably 4:30 till 6. I slow down again, and I'll probably do another couple hours afterwards, and depending on what's needed. But that's kind of my day. I think the beauty of being a business owner, like I have someone on the East Coast, I have someone on the West Coast. So these little breaks are good for me to be able to communicate with those when necessary. But yeah, it's a lot, right? Like I don't really have a ton of midweek hobbies. I'm not out playing 5-a-side. Like every couple of weeks, I'll go and play 9 holes, maybe over 6:00 evening time, and that's good fun. But I don't do a ton in the week other than work out and hang with my family. But I kind of like it, honestly. Like I'm building a business. I see my friends on the weekends, and it just kind of is what it is. But it's nice and structured. I have a kid who sleeps great, which I'm really grateful for. So, it's I'm not often woken up at 2-3 a.m. and kind of wake up looking tired, feeling shit. Like I feel super grateful that she goes to bed at 6 and wakes up at 6. So we are really, really lucky. Like for whatever tough that we deal with, she's a great sleeper.
Wow, that is a dream, mate. That is an absolute dream.
Yeah,
and if we look back now and think, right, if there's someone sat there in an agency who's been umming and ahhing about launching their own company over the last few years, and for whatever reason, COVID and the market, and they're a competent recruiter, and they want to do it, but they're using every excuse under the sun to slow themselves down. Like, what advice would you give them now? Like, talking directly to them.
Look, one is you can work. Like, if you're good, you'll go and get a job anyway. If it doesn't work out, I think what I was grateful for with RecruitHub is they front the first bill. So if it doesn't work out, like obviously they're taking calculated risks and they don't take everybody on, but they front the stuff. So you're not really like digging too heavily into savings or whatever. So I would say, look, if you're a fairly competent recruiter, look, I also feel like with a down economy, I'm probably expecting less deals of recruitment, like strategic exits over the next coming years. I feel like people are starting those cycles again. And there's always less than people sell you on, to be perfectly honest. Like every business is going through an exit, and I feel they don't. I know every business is targeting it and everyone wants the big payday, but not everybody does it. Most don't, to be honest. I think there was a percentage of like however many do, and it's less than 1% that do it every year. So if you think that's what's tying you back, it's probably not. Again, if you're fairly good, if you want autonomy, if you want like there's things that maybe sometimes I regret, like the growth kind of stops and you have to go and seek your own growth. I think that's one of the most interesting things is that no one's going to water you. You have to go and find out your own growth through reading or coaching or whatever, which is probably, I think, one of the most interesting. I'm at that point now where I'm like trying to figure out who my coach might be and who my growth mentor might be, which is I'm not the most coachable person. So it's whoever gets it, it's a tough job. But yeah, I think like it's a fairly low risk situation. Like go and do it. The worst thing you can do if you're a decent recruiter, someone's going to hire you if it doesn't work out. And I guarantee it works out more often than not for people.
Yeah. If you've got the work ethic and, you keep your costs down and you don't spend like a lunatic and not everyone's going to hire in 3 months. They're going to just keep their head down. But it's not, again, I always say it's like content. It's an if, not a when. Like it will work if you just do the basics right. But you've got to come in with that experience and knowledge of what you're doing. Stuart, this has been a pleasure, mate. Thank you so much for giving us your time. I know it's early where you are, so I want to leave you to get on with your day. If anyone has listened and feels inspired by you and wants just to pick your brains or wants to become your mentor, either one, is it okay if they drop you a note on LinkedIn and reach out and have a chat? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, it's been a real pleasure. It's been a ton of fun.
Legend, mate. Thanks so much. I'll get you back on without a doubt in the next couple of years to see how Hampton North grows and eventuates. But I've got no doubt you're going to have some huge success.
Appreciate it. And looking forward to the next one.
Thank you, as always, for listening to today's show. I truly, truly hope that you got value from it. That's the only reason I take time every week, is to ensure that my audience, future and existing recruitment owners, are learning from each other to make this industry that I love so much stronger. Today's episode was brought to you by Hoxo Media. I am the CEO and founder of Hoxo Media, and we are the world's leading content marketing and personal branding agency for recruitment businesses specifically. So we are working with over 200 agencies and 2,000 recruiters right now, both managing the brands, producing content, building written, video, podcast content for niche recruitment agencies all over the world, as well as coaching at a desk level individual recruiters in your businesses how to be better on LinkedIn. That's how to brand themselves. That's how to produce content. That's how to use the opportunity on LinkedIn to get traffic to their profiles and turn that into business. We're coaching people all over the world every single day. If any of that sounds of interest, please do visit www.hoxomedia.com or drop me, Sean Anderson, a personal message on LinkedIn. I would love to talk to you. I'll see you soon.